Welcome to an introduction to Passive House. This is part one of a 5-part series. In this episode, we'll review what makes Passive House so compelling in the first place and look at some of the precedents leading to Passive House. Today, we face interrelated and interlocking crises, environmental, health, and social crises. And while how we deal with them or not is an individual choice, we all should be able to recognize the power of buildings to help solve our problems or to exacerbate them. As the Reverend Mariama White Hammond of the Green Justice Coalition and others have said, building is not a neutral act. Passive House alone is not the solution to anything, of course, but it does uniquely support solutions. What's different with Passive House is that it truly recognizes and embraces the power that buildings possess, what the architectural structure holds, and in so doing, Passive House empowers architectural solutions to fundamental problems. We must eliminate carbon emissions. With Passive House, the architecture itself can drive energy efficiency. We must protect our health, and Passive House places hygienic indoor environments as part of its foundational concept. We must provide storm resilience, and Passive House provides the most robust shelter-in-place potential possible today. We must provide affordability. What we build cannot be for the 1% or the 10%, but must be for all people. Passive House provides affordability both in initial costs and long-term operation and maintenance. And in these uncertain times, we need to mitigate future financial risks, future risks to our investments. Whether it's a down payment on our first modest home or an organization funding big commercial building projects, buildings are huge investments, typically our biggest investments. Today, with fast-changing environmental and regulatory conditions, these investments face an increasingly uncertain future. How do you lower your risk today? Build a Passive House. Passive House cuts through the twists and turns and gets you over the horizon to the goal line. We're headed to a zero-carbon future. With Passive House, we can build to meet that future today. With Passive House, you can future-proof your buildings. So a goal of this short presentation is for you to better understand what this all means and how it's all possible. Understand how you can utilize Passive House to make the change you want to see in the world. We hope you'll never be able to look at buildings the same way again. So let's first take a step back. What came before Passive House? What are the precedents, the prehistory? Of course, Passive House didn't spring from out of nowhere. It was formulated based on a long history of efforts. Not surprisingly, like so much received wisdom, it starts with vernacular architecture. And the example of southern China is of particular relevance because it was the study of the performance of these buildings that helped inform the work of Bo Adamson, a Swedish academic, and in so doing, launching the Passive House idea for a research project in Europe. Another interesting example is the Norwegian polar explorer ship, the Fram, which contained amazingly all the principal strategies of Passive House building, with fresh air and the occupants' comfort provided only by a single lamp burning. In Denmark, the DTH Zero Energy House provided valuable experiences directly incorporated into the start of Passive House research. In Germany, a super-insulated experimental home showed the potential of passive measures providing energy savings on the order of 10 to 20 times in Europe and America. And in the US and Canada, pioneers like Wayne Schick, William Shercliffe, Amory Lovins, Harold Orr, and others pushed super-insulated developments in the 70s and 80s. These and many more examples were the precursors of the birth of the modern Passive House. We should note here, as a clarification sidebar of sorts, that none of these precedents were what we'd call passive solar buildings that proliferated in the 1970s. These precedents are not overglazed, and they rely more on a balance achieved with super insulation. It's understandable that people mistakenly draw a direct connection between passive solar and Passive House because of the similarity in name and use of passive solar heat gains in both, but the connection causes endless confusion and wrong-headed assumptions. Personally, I'd compare it to someone confusing an electric golf cart for a Tesla automobile. They do have their similarities, but occupy different realms of development and considerations. So the first passive house was built in 1990 as a research project, a physics experiment in Darmstadt, Germany, by an international team led by Dr. Wolfgang Feist, the founder of the Passive House Institute, and included the pioneer Bo Adamson and many others. It was and is composed of 4 attached row houses, complete with custom building components developed for the experiment. And this research solidified the underlying principles and strategies that would become the Passive House standard. The story goes that Amory Lovins visited the building early on and provided the insight that these new developments should be standardized, and scaled to great effect on the building industry. And so from that time, the Passive House Institute has continually conducted research and development tools, working with industry and government partners worldwide to make passive house buildings the new normal. I hope you enjoyed this segment. Be sure to watch part 2 on what was the passive house discovery and look at some of its many benefits.